Hello, 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 and welcome to another installment of book learning. Now, I got a picture here that some of you may just be driven crazy by because it has Donald Trump's face on it. That's okay. Whether you love the guy or you hate the guy, he is very... he's controversial, let's put it that way. He's a little bit polarizing, but I don't really care about any of that stuff right now. What I care about is this book, Midas Touch, written by Trump and Robert Kiyosaki, who, as you guys know, is one of my favorite teachers. He is I don't know if I want to call him an idol, but he is definitely a mentor of mine and somebody I look up to and try to learn from as much as possible. So Robert Kiyosaki is the Rich Dad brand and educates on financial independence, financial education, all that stuff. So I want to talk about this book because there is some good stuff to be learned from it. So at everything about Trump, put that aside for 1 minute and let's get into it. Before I actually talk, though, about the lessons from the book, I just have to talk about a little aside here. So the Midas Touch, you've probably heard that term before. What does it mean? It means turning things to gold, right? Okay. Before this book, this term has been used all the time, and there's actually a car care company called Midas. And I remember the jingle as a kid, the commercial, "Trust the Midas Touch," or something like that, right? Their slogan was "Trust the Midas Touch." So just for those of you who are actually interested in mythology, or whatever you want to call this, King Midas was a man who wanted to be able to turn anything to gold that he touched. So he prayed to the gods, and this gift was given to him. Now, it wasn't soon after that he got this gift that he realized he couldn't eat food anymore because it would turn to gold. He couldn't touch anything, or have it be functional in any way because it would just turn to gold. And then near the end of the story, he hugged his daughter and basically killed her because he turned her into a gold statue. So this concept of the Midas Touch, I think, has been a little lost on, and maybe this is bigger commentary on our society because everybody focuses on these material riches, right? And in the real story of King Midas, it was only when he recognized a deeper understanding of riches and values and life and love that he repented to the gods, and they kind of washed away the curse, as it became known as, not a gift. And his daughter came back to life, and everything was undone, basically. Okay, so maybe that's another philosophical debate we can have someday. I think we should talk about that, because there's a lot more to happiness and success in life than a bunch of gold and money. That being said, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to create real wealth through a business, this book is for you. Read this book and listen or read, my summary of it. The main focus, the main point that I got from it is that if you want to be really successful as an entrepreneur, that means rich, right? You have to go beyond being the one-man team. And a lot of people go into their own business because they're sick of working at a job and they have a specialty and they know they can make money doing it. I fall perfectly into this category, right? So I'm working very hard on this right now. I'm hiring employees. I'm creating systems to get my business functioning in a way that doesn't just require my hard work. Okay, so if you want to learn kind of more to do that, let's jump into some of the key points here that I want to go over. First, of course, though, I always like to do my little quotes. So this is actually the quote from the authors, just kind of in the foreword to get people, I think, a little excited and just understanding what it's about. It says, "To the entrepreneurs of today who struggle, strive, and succeed, and to the entrepreneurs of tomorrow who will see opportunities where others see only obstacles." That should be others. This is the dedication. That's right, the dedication of the book. So with that, let's get into it. Here are the golden nuggets we're going to go over. First, well, of course, like all good books, this one used a cute gimmick. And the main points are characterized into each finger of the hand. So starting with the thumb, strength of character. The index finger, focus. The middle finger, brand. The ring finger, relationships. And finally, the little finger, the little things that count. So these are the chapters of the book, and these are the 5 points that Donald and Robert are telling us we need to have at the core of ourselves and at the core of our businesses to be truly successful entrepreneurs. Let's get into the first one, the thumb, strength of character. Now remember, this is not necessarily a book summary, or I'm definitely not covering everything in the book, so you should still get the book, you should still read it, but here are my main takeaways from these chapters. The first one is that there's a big difference between employees and entrepreneurs, and you can kind of sum it down into that employees know all the answers and entrepreneurs ask the questions. Okay? Perfect A students, they're the ones that make the best employees, and it's because they know all the right answers. They do not want to fail, so they know everything in advance, and they don't push beyond their boundaries. Entrepreneurs, on the other hand, they ask a lot of questions. They have to test things. They fail here and there and multiple times to find out what actually works. And instead of kind of competing like employees do, employees, compete for, first for grades, then for jobs, then for promotions. Entrepreneurs, on the other hand, they they collaborate more, right? They obviously have to compete in their industry with companies, but they have to collaborate with their employees, with partners, investors, bankers, accountants, lawyers, all kinds of firms and other companies, vendors, right? So that is kind of one of the biggest difference, I think, between employees and entrepreneurs. And where the book says your best point of strength of character can come from as an entrepreneur is to focus on emotional intelligence. They also called this intrapersonal intelligence. This is the intelligence that allows you to control your own thoughts and feelings. The book quotes, I quote the book, when you have strong intrapersonal skills, you can control the self-talk that holds you back and undermines your success. Okay? That is a huge skill because there are a lot more ups and downs in the world of entrepreneurship than there is in the world of employees. With that, let's move on to the next finger, the index finger. This is focus. So my first big takeaway here is that specialization is not good if you want to be an entrepreneur. If you want to be an employee, or if you want to be a self-employed, like I said, one-man show or one-woman show, then specialization is great because you can increase your hourly billing rate, right? If you're the best of the best in the business, you can charge a higher rate. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, this means you're going to have to understand a little about a lot of things and hire other specialists to fill in those areas, okay? So again, this is a very relevant lesson to me, and I've been working on this for some time now. Rich Dad actually specifically, the whole company calls out 3 specific specialists, and those are doctors, accountants, and attorneys. And it's pretty funny because my wife and I are the first 2, right? She's a doctor, I'm an accountant. And, I've been working on that, and she's getting her business up and going. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about that. But anyway, we all need to keep these things in mind. If we want to be a one-person show, then it's okay, become a specialist. But if we want to grow our business, we need to start thinking about becoming more of a generalist. And if you understand the cash flow quadrant, I'll get into that a little bit more. It's a Rich Dad concept, but I started my business in the S quadrant as a self-employed specialist, one person. But as I've started hiring people and building systems, I'm trying to move more and more into the B quadrant, which is a business owner. And if you stay specialized, the business, it lives and dies by the work you do. And you can only make money when you're working, right? So if you want to be what Trump and Kiyosaki say is a successful entrepreneur, a big business, a rich entrepreneur, then you got to be thinking about becoming more of a generalist. Next lesson, I'm super glad my dad taught me this at a young age. His focus, I mean, he's not an entrepreneur, he's an employee, but at least his focus was never on just earning a bunch of money, right? He thought that you should learn, you should keep things interesting, you should try to better yourself throughout life, and that's a lesson I really took to heart. I probably didn't earn as much money in my days as an employee because of it, but I think I learned a lot more, and the biggest lesson I learned was to get the out, right? So that was for me. Maybe something different is for you, but work to learn, not to earn. Moving on to the middle finger, which is the brand. What does that tell you about Trump, that he associates brand with middle finger? It seems like his brand, kind of. At least as president. Anyway, not political, neither here nor there. So, there is a lot of gold, pun intended, in this chapter. And so rather than trying to summarize or give takeaways, I'm just going to show you the final points to remember that they listed out, okay? Your brand must be genuine. Everybody can spot a fake, and it turns people off. A brand is the promise you deliver, and also the experience. It's the promise that you're saying you're going to give to your customers, and then it's the experience that you deliver on. It's not a logo. It's not a lot of new entrepreneurs think everything is about the business cards and the logos and the website. It's not. That's all part of the experience, but it needs to be deeper than that. People buy with their hearts, and they justify with their minds. So, you have to have the courage to find your heart and put it into your brand. It also means when you're marketing, you can't be too logical necessarily. You have to win people with their emotions, and then they'll justify the purchase based on, well, if it's too much they won't, but based on how they feel. Figure out what really moves you. You have to have, they say you have to have the fire in order to have the Midas touch. And that's true just in general. Entrepreneurship is not easy, it's a lot of work, and you gotta have something driving you, other than I want to be rich. Okay, if you're too cheap to invest in your brand, the Midas touch will elude you, they say. And by cheap, they're talking about money, time, commitment, and people, everything. So you have to be willing to invest in your business. Lastly, do whatever it takes to improve your public speaking skills. They say you'll absolutely need them. This goes in with the brand, right? You or somebody in your company has to be the face of your brand, and you have to be good at it. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, and heck, I would like to think this is me doing that. I love sharing stuff like this with you guys. I love deepening my brand by building it around education and business and investing, and that's what I'm trying to do by getting out here. Okay, so yeah, I think these succinct points are more valuable than than my commentary or takeaways. Let's move on to the ring finger. Relationships. Keep in mind, everything that I'm about to say here can be applied outside of business. At least I think. This is relevant to any kind of intimate relationship, friendship, partnership, and anything to do with business. These rules, I think, apply across the board. First, hire slow, fire fast. Everybody says this, nobody does it. An easier way to apply it, I think a little more generally, is just develop relationships slowly and end them quickly. So if you're thinking about getting into business with somebody, don't start a company 50-50 ownership right out the gates. Instead, maybe collaborate together, do some work together, throw each other some referrals, work on specific projects or deals together. That's something that Trump really talked about. He wrote a book, The Art of the Deal, which I have yet to do an episode on, but I will. And yeah, he basically says you can do deals individually so that when that deal ends, the relationship can either end, or if it's great, then you're probably going to want to do another deal together. Number 2, consider ownership and control as 2 separate things when you get into a deeper relationship. So for instance, if you are starting that company together, if you're going for a partnership, then is it going to be 50-50? Could somebody own 50% but only have 49% control? Something like this. These can be very important to how you may want to set up your business to be most advantageous to you. Just like in intimate relationships or marriages, nobody wants to think about the divorce, right? But they say always ensure that there is an exit clause, okay? Because if things end for whatever reason, you need to have a way that the one partner who wants to get out can get out and the other partner can assume the remainder of the business. Lastly, as long as you have a vested interest in the business, stay active to some degree. I say trust but verify. That means you can't expect that everybody, especially if you own 100% of the business, you can't expect that everybody else is going to work as hard as you or do as good of a job as you would do or care as much as you care about the success of the business. People operate on incentives. So first of all, give them incentives to be on the same team as you and see the business succeed, but also recognize that if you own a bunch of it and you're vested in its success, you better keep an eye on it. Moving on, finally, last finger, the little things that count. I'll be honest, this was a little, I think this, the book was organized in a very cute way, 5 fingers. This was kind of an other section. It was where they could kind of cram another concept and link it to the little finger, right? Maybe they would feel differently about that, but I thought it was a little unfocused. There was still some very good stuff in it. But my biggest takeaway from this one was that what I was talking about at the very beginning, the move from the employee side of things to the business side of things is what makes people rich, okay? In fact, I have here, okay, if you want to grow your business, you must separate yourself from it. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but the image there on the right, this is the cash flow quadrant that Rich Dad Company has made extremely famous, and I think it's very, 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 very useful to consider. E stands for employee, S stands for self-employed or specialist, B stands for business owner, big business owner, and I stands for investor. In short, if you're on the left side of the quadrant, you're either poor or middle class, and if you're on the right side of the quadrant, well, I guess I could call it a bidrant in that case. But if you're a B or an I, you're rich, okay? The reason is employees and self-employed people do not make money from other people's time or other people's money. It's totally dependent on how much they work, and if they stop working, then the business stops working. So this, I think, is the main takeaway from this book. If you want to be, quote, rich in your business, in your life, investing, whatever, then you need to consider this. You need to say, I have to make my income something greater than the hours I put in. And these are the 2 biggest ways to do it. One is to build a business around getting other people to help you work, and they do the actual work. I'm sure you still do some work too, but you profit off of their work. Or you learn how to leverage other people's money in the form of debt or investment capital in the form of equity. Either way, you are leveraging something greater than your own efforts. Okay? That is the biggest takeaway I have from this book, and I think we can all work to implement it. I am doing so very hard right now. All right, so that being said, let us move on to the exercise. Get into this. I really recommend you read this book, but make a comment here, look at these questions, think about them to yourself or comment. Getting engaged really helps the material stick. So, first question. Which was your favorite finger of the Midas touch? Mine was the last one, even though it was very confusing in some ways. That huge takeaway was kind of my aha golden nugget for the book. Second, what quadrant are you in and how long have you been there? And third, what quadrant do you want to be in and what do you need to do to get there? I'm sure that's not a short answer, but it's definitely something we would all benefit from thinking about. With that, thank you very much for yet another installment of Book Learning. I look forward to any comments or questions you all have, and I promise I will see you soon in the next one. Bye.